I love these. They're so much fun. We have had a lot of conversation today. Andrew and I recorded an episode earlier with one of our community members, and then we did a social episode earlier, which was also a lot of fun. None of these episodes have had any cohesive starting point, and so why should this roundtable be any different? Before I start, I just want to say thank you to everybody who has been helping us out on Patreon. This has been a huge thing for us because Andrew and I have been doing this full time for almost a year now. We're coming up on 9 months. This is our 2-year anniversary on the podcast. And frankly, we've never thought of the business end of this up until just recently in terms of making a profit and trying to get some money out of it so we can continue to build resources for the community and stuff like that. We just haven't thought about it. It's always been about the conversation. And so if it wasn't for Patreon, and all of the support that our Patreon supporters give us, this wouldn't be happening. We wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be able to do this 5 days a week. We wouldn't be able to put so much time and effort and energy into just continuing to grow as people so we can share it with you. So I just wanted to give a shout out to everybody who's been supporting us on Patreon, as well as everybody on our Discord, everybody who's just on our Instagram or any of our social media. Hell, if you're listening to this for the first time, thank you so much for being here, because that's how this all comes to be, is just collective change, and then we witness what happens. And right now, Dualistic Unity is happening. This roundtable is happening. I'm very excited. I'm going to pass it over to Andrew and shut the fuck up now. But welcome, everyone. It's nice to see you.
It is great to see everyone. And to echo Ray, it means the world for you, not even necessarily any degree of support. It's certainly appreciated, but just the willingness to be yourself in a world that's full of people not being themselves. Like, that is Dualistic Unity. You are Dualistic Unity. So you just being yourself is not even something we ask, but an option that we're showing or talking about or discussing, or at least discussing. So I appreciate everyone who's willing to be it, and I'm super excited for this chat. I was just talking about my donut shaped egg bites that I just got from Dunkin' Donuts and how unappetizing it is for eggs to be shaped like a donut, and it was kind of great. And then I started talking about it more, and I get less and less appetized. So I lost my appetite just in time for the call to start. So that's fantastic. But I guess to kick things off, Marie, have you been on a roundtable before? You have, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
you've been on. Okay, I wanted to kick things off with Kat. It's great to see you. I appreciate you coming on and joining, and would love for you to just share a little bit about yourself.
Okay. I'm actually at work right now. I'm in a meeting room. But my name is Kat. I live in Utah. I stumbled across your account recently. It was your gummies videos, and they just made me laugh so fucking much. And then I started like really listening to more things, and I was like, and I hopped on the live today, and I was like, oh, I don't know what all this is. Like, this sounds fun. So that's how I got here today. I was just like, I was at my desk and working, and your live was up on my computer or like on my phone. But yeah, I live in Utah. I'm new to Utah, and always exploring growth and mind expansion, for however lame that might sound. And yeah, I don't know what else to say, so I'm going to stop.
That's perfect. Welcome. It's really nice to see you. And obviously you're in good company, because you did exactly what everybody here has done at one point. They just jumped in. Like, I don't even know why the fuck I'm here, but I'm glad to be here. So it's really nice to see you, Kat. Thank you for joining us. We're basically going to go around and talk about authenticity a lot. And it might sound, as you were saying, kind of, cliche or anything like that, but it doesn't really, because it's not the words. I think that's been the overarching message a lot lately in the last couple of weeks of the podcast, is that, it's really not about the words. Like, the words are almost a danger, because they can become such a trap. Like, you start to use them and throw them around, and suddenly it sounds like you know what the fuck you're talking about, but really you're just stroking your ego. And it's so very interesting to know that, because if you don't know that, suddenly again, it's about the words, and you're listening to people talking about high consciousness things instead of recognizing that everybody is in the same fucking place. Everybody's in the same amount of uncertainty. Everybody's just dealing with shit as best they can. There is no high level and low level consciousness people. There are just people somewhere in the spectrum of being everything. And it's interesting. It equalizes things. But as long as you've got words, like spirituality and whatnot, God, that one's the one that gets me the most. It really is, because this isn't a spiritual conversation. You could say it is, but it's really the most grounded, reasonable conversation in the world. We're just talking about being yourself. Just be yourself. Just relax. And all of a sudden you feel a little more connected to everything. You feel a little less disconnected, I think, is more the point, because you're not dividing yourself through all these thoughts, through all this thinking, through all this you versus them. You're just being, and that's where you start to experience all these things that religion really tries to get across, or at least tries to communicate, but then bastardizes in its efforts to maintain itself. Because over time, it's got to maintain itself. And so you got to change your perspective on things, right? Because the structure is important. This is one thing on Dualistic Unity we talk about all the time. The structure is not important. The podcast is not important. Whatever it is we're doing, it's already being done. The podcast could disappear today, and there's still a change that's happened. It has its own point. The podcast is unimportant. It's you that's important.
Amen. Yeah. I mean, fuck, that one's been hitting me recently just so hard. The application, to your point, the words can very easily become a danger, because it's never been anything that's said. It's almost like not even as closely connected as I thought necessarily. Because there's still, if it's anything about the words, it's like the words are the input into getting to where you're going, as opposed to the words being a product and expression of where you are. And the words can very much create a sort of trajectory, a path, like measuring yourself in terms of how well you understand things, which then means, how well you act, or how correctly you act. If there's any degree of a right way of being that you're striving towards, that's going to come up in potential in every situation that you go through, there being, but when there isn't so much, and it comes back to just doing it for you here and now, with no need for words to come out in any way. It's just a raw expression of yourself being free in the spot that you're in, not needing to get anywhere, or making an assumption that anywhere else could possibly be better than where you're at right now, or mean something more about where you're at right now, because they're all just assumptions anyway. And so it's never really been about the words at all. It's just been you applying it, it's not even like you applying it correctly or properly. It's just you feeling it, being it. And then the words don't need to make so much sense.
Well, because it's really important to remember that, even the word relax, be yourself. Let's just say those words, relax, be yourself. If I'm coming across relax, be yourself, I'm like, Jesus Christ. The words don't really mean anything. It's how they're delivered. It's the vehicle that they're delivered through. And that's you. Your perspective on everything is what facilitates how you deliver any message. This is why I always thought it was funny in life coaching. It's not about having the clever answer. It's about sincerely empathizing with the journey. Right? That's all it is. It's yeah, this shit's hard. And so many people are like, really? It's not just me? It's yeah, it's not just you. This stuff's hard. And that's okay. And now we have a hand raised. Amanda, hello. Thank you for joining the roundtable. How are you?
More accurately, a lion's paw was raised. Human hands are old news. No, but that's a game that we play in the chat for the most part. I'm always instigating us, doing something different. I was thinking about it. I was like, damn, we've had medieval hands, vampire hands, werewolf hands. I was like, what kind of hands haven't gone up yet? I was like, animal hands, or paws, or claws, or, talons. So, but it's just keeping it fun. And so when I think about this question, or this idea of, bam, yes. Okay. Side note, just got distracted like a dog. Squirrel. totally had that moment. Oh, but when I'm thinking about authenticity, it's not that like I'm being accurate or true to the Amanda story. It's that I'm just fucking relaxed. I'm not putting on any show. I'm not trying to be anything. It's like you're talking about authenticity. It's just another word for how relaxed you are. Because when I'm feeling the most like a character, I feel tense. I feel the expectations of that role, of that script, of how that's going to be received by the audience. And I forget that I'm the biggest audience member, because I'm the one that judges the role the harshest. I'm the one that has the most, I put the most weight on that character. But truly, when I feel the most authentic is when I'm not trying to be anything, including the character Amanda. And it's just when I am the absolute most relaxed is when I have been called the most authentic.
Fuck yeah. Cause like in that state of relaxation, there's not, unless you're looking at thoughts and focused on thoughts for some reason, there can't be so much an idea of what to do that's based upon, you know, some preconceived notion of yourself. And it's been it's interesting, like as you start looking at yourself and kind of like being relaxed enough to just be yourself, it's like you start to feel all of the reasons that you weren't, like they start to come up in a sense. And so, but you're able to then work through those from a newfound perspective, because you know that it doesn't mean anything about you, but the first time around you were building you. And so that's what created, like we were talking about yesterday with the knots, like the story of you is like a rope with a bunch of knots in it. And as you work through, as you relax, it allows those knots to be worked through, but it doesn't mean that they go away like that. It's like they're untied and let go of, and that means that they change. And that change comes with discomfort. And Ray reposted, I think, one of his TikToks the other day or yesterday, that change and discomfort go hand in hand. So like if you're feeling uncomfortable, don't run from that. Don't panic. It's just indicative of things at play in process, and just keep on going. Just keep on doing it. Just keep on. The more you're willing to relax despite that, almost accelerates whatever shit is going on, whatever discomforts that you're feeling. It's like it's almost like it's shifting my perspective of the discomfort, because my discomfort is just my response to what's happening. It's not about actually what's happening. And so as I let go of my opinion of what's happening, then there isn't so much discomfort about it, or at least the psychological prolonged discomfort, when I stop judging the thing for what it is. It just becomes what it is, and then it's like worked through. And I'm seeing some chats. Is anyone raise hand? Throw it to Ray.
No, nobody's raised their hand. They're all gossiping about the name that I have chosen for today's chat. And it's just because for anybody who's not watching the video version of this, it's Andrew. The name I chose was Andrew. For now, it's not going to stay that way forever. I mean, next time it could be Carl, as it has been previously, as opposed to Andrew's Jimmy, which also has popped up. But see, this is the thing, and I genuinely think the simplicity of this is why it works so well. Each and every one of us kind of know what it is to get drowned in thought. That's all it is. Like, we understand what it is to think about ourselves and think about our life and worry about control and worry about what's going to happen next and worry about what happened before and worry about what it means about us and worry about what people think and worry about what we think about them. And like, there's just so many things, layer upon layer upon layer. And although like we do pretty well when we're say jogging, or we're playing an instrument, or you're lost in a video game, or whatever it is, whatever our chosen distraction might be, we feel a little bit better. But then something comes at us from out of nowhere and we feel afraid, and we're immediately lost in this thought that, you know, there's got to be some way to fix this. There's got to be some reason I'm here. There's got to be all of that. And it's just all of that. And all we're ever really talking about is the fact that we really all have that temptation to do that. to just fall into thought, thinking that it's going to somehow make more sense for us, instead of just confusing us more and more. Because regardless of what we might think, we don't know. And life is far too complex to really just pin down to one or two reasons. Like, I feel like this because this person did this. It's like, well, yeah, but there's more to it than that, right? Like, we've often talked about, say, anxiety. It's like, well, I feel anxiety because, I'm going for a job interview. It's like, well, no, you feel anxiety because you're afraid that you're not going to get that job and what it might mean about you. And that's been ingrained to you over time because you were taught to live up to expectations. You went through the schooling system where you were measured upon your successes, not your failures. Like, there was this slow process of you learning how to think in a certain way that brought you to anxiety. Certain assumptions that you're still making about yourself and what not getting that job might mean, right? It's never just this problem. Oh God, I'm anxious. There's a nest of things. And when you start to untangle all those things, you go, okay. So I've just really overinvested in this idea of control over and over and over again. That's really all it is, because we don't have control. And every time we get really anxious, it's because we're concerned about the end result. Is it going to turn out well? What does that mean? Does it mean, is it going to turn out in the way that you think is the best outcome? Because probably not. How many times have you got what you want only to find out it wasn't as satisfying as you were hoping it would be? We forget that, for sure. I can see more chatter, but I'm just wondering if there's a hand raised or if anybody's just laughing at the fact that there are numerous Andrews everywhere. Andrews. No, it's great. On the other hand, I don't know if Andrew is comfortable with this much Andrew.
Certainly not. Quite incredibly uncomfortable. But it's interesting with the discomforts arising and with, the habitual tendencies to reach for certain tools or certain distractions. It's like those tools, distractions, all of those things aren't freedom. Like, they're a comfortable way of avoiding freedom. I like the anti-Andrew. They're a comfortable way of avoiding freedom. And so it's been interesting for me, at least, willing to not grab to so many distractions all the time, or grab to so many tools or, reassurances, because there's a lot of times where I'm left with just myself, as I am, and there's a lot that comes up. And I guess the willingness to not run from that allows it to get looked at and then worked through and processed and all those things. But it's like we avoid the processing of it by trying to distract ourselves, by not feeling it, as opposed to just feeling it and maybe letting go of our certainty of it, letting go of my certainty that it means something about me. And could that just be it? That we go through all those things and yeah, no, we're done. I see
Amanda.
more chat stuff. Oh, we have a hand. Nice.
We do. But I do want to mention to everyone that while everybody is named Andrew, and that's great, it does make it difficult to know who's waving their hand in the chat when you're all named Andrew.
I guess we could just do physical hand raises.
We could, but I am the only evil twin here. So, I mean, how hard do I make it for you, really? just for the record. Oh my goodness. But I have been, I've definitely just been appreciating just seeing everyone relaxing. And so I've been mentioning this to other people, like Andrew in particular. I have been loving watching you make those videos, those short, what I consider like little short films. And so I feel like I'm watching the director, Andrew, arise and just making these little films, and just the commentary is fucking cracking me up. And it's really so much fun for me to watch, because it looks like it's so much fun for you to do. And that's what I'm really loving, because I'm not getting anything out of it. Like, you're on your adventure, you're doing your own thing. I'm on my adventure, I'm doing my own thing. And technically they're two separate adventures, but it's fucking amazing when you see somebody. It's like it's like when you catch somebody and they're dancing, and they are not just dancing, they are in the fucking groove. They are grooving like it is their last jam. They are grooving like they have invented dance, and they are feeling it in a way that like they are that moment. And it's so delicious just to drink it in, just the sight of it, just to be there. And you're like, I am not even dancing, but I am feeling it, sir. You are. This is a good, it's good. Are good times contagious? Because I am feeling them, sir, and I was not feeling them just a minute ago. Oh my God. And it's just so fantastic. And the one of the ways that I used to practice this for years is with a best friend of mine. And usually what I had heard growing up is that girls don't like girls. Girls don't want to see other girls happy, that they can't be trusted, they're catty and all of this. And me and my friend, we are two powerhouses. We take up space, and you would think that we wouldn't get along, but it's just that we always understood that even if one of us was quote unquote center stage, there was always time for someone else to be center stage. Like, it was never forever. And we always kind of on some level knew, like, there's enough happiness, there's enough joy, there's enough purpose, there's enough of everything for everybody. So I never have to feel some type of way if someone else is center stage. Rock that stage, man. Encore, please. The crowd, I speak for the people want more, So, and it's just so fantastic to be able to like genuinely feel that for someone, because I have also been in the other breath where I have begrudgingly said congratulations, and I could hear the venom in my own voice. Like, I knew that I was not happy with that person. I knew that I did not want to be saying congratulations. I could hear the venom. And that's why the words never matter, because it's always about where are those words coming from. Are you genuinely happy for someone, or are you saying that because that's what nice people say? I've been there. I have done both. I have been the person genuinely happy for someone else, and I have been the person that has been bitter about someone else's happiness. Like, I know exactly what it feels like. And it's all when I get caught up in, either I'm caught up in the story or I'm not. And because I'm not caught up in my story, I get to genuinely appreciate the story that you're creating in front of me in that very moment. So I feel like I am at the seat of your creative genius, and I fucking love it. And I'm very much happy to see it, and just excited that it's not just us. It's that this is rippling. Like, it's really very visible how much I'm seeing this ripple out in the DU community, how much it's rippling out at work with my coworkers, how it's rippling out with my neighbors. Like, this shit is tangible, man. Like, it's so amazing, and I'm just so incredibly grateful and appreciating all of these conversations and all of you handling your work. Because I remember being at a retreat and someone felt bad about stepping away from the group, and like they weren't contributing to the group. And what I had said to them was, you dealing with your shit is the greatest gift you could ever give the group. It's not only the greatest gift you can give yourself, but it's the greatest gift that you can give to the rest of us. Because I'd rather you take a moment to deal with your shit than pretend you don't have shit and try to be at the party like the shit's not bubbling up to the surface. Because we all can feel it. It's just a matter of where's our attention? Is our attention on the moment or on the story about how the moment should be different?
Fucking amen. And I appreciate your appreciation. It's fun to see people stepping into themselves more, right? It's like, that's fucking exciting, especially if you feel like you're stepping into yourself more, because it's like the whatever resistance you have to that is your resistance to people being themselves. Like, your own resistance to being yourself, you're going to resist other people being themselves. And if you're more willing to be yourself, you're going to appreciate more people just for being themselves, not being any sort of way, for being themselves. And so you being yourself is the best thing you can ever do for anyone ever. Just being the you that you are right now. Best thing you can ever fucking do for me. I know we have some hands. Pam. Great to see you, Pam. How you doing?
Hey guys, good to be here. I don't know if you guys who were at the retreat or any of you heard me talking about how when I was at the retreat, I was somewhat fixated on when I got back, how I've kind of had these epiphanies and I've learned these things, and that I was going to have to tell people about it. And that was kind of messing me up. And I was like, it's not my responsibility to tell them. They're all going to be curious. They'll be able to see, they're going to be asking all these questions. And how do I explain this to them? very fixated on that. And what I realized when I got back was, I just sort of gave a slight overview of kind of like, hey, this was a retreat where there was no schedule. We didn't really, quote, do anything. And once I said that, a lot of people were satisfied with that. But what I found was in the following days and weeks since then, even today this happened, is I don't need to say anything. People are asking me like, what's going on with you? You seem like you're doing great. Like, what's this all about? And I just realized it's that same thing. Me being me, figuring out my shit, being at ease, having all these things happen to me and kind of settling and getting into this flow state is like, people can't help but notice. And then they come to me and sort of ask a little bit about, hey, what are you up to? What's this all about? So I kind of felt like people would be kind of, skeptical and fighting me on it and, really holding me accountable for like helping them understand it. And then I realized I just need to be me and they're going to start understanding and they're going to get curious and they're going to see. So to me, that was like such a huge epiphany. Like, I don't have to have the answers for these people. I am the answer kind of just by being here and being me. So that's the thing I really loved about this. And I just keep, I've got my little index cards that you guys know that I've made. So, let the brain think, you be in the moment here now, just that's it. Just be you. Just let it go. So that's what I've been feeling great about. I don't have to do anything. They're going to get it. And the ripples are made.
Exactly. Yeah. You being you is the most jarring thing you can do to reality. You want to shake someone, like be yourself.
Yeah.
And really be willing to be it. And that'll shake them.
Right.
And allow them to question some of their assumptions. Certainly.
And there's a lot of
most
curiosity with people now, I think, too, is that there's so many people suffering that when they see somebody who suddenly doesn't seem to be suffering as much anymore, and then they're kind of like, whoa, what's up? I want to ask you about this, but, they're nervous, they're confused about it. But just the fact that they can see a change in me is such a huge ripple for them. And so I just love it.
That's fucking awesome. I'm feeling you with it too. I'm feeling that the impact's never been about any fucking words. Because, Amanda, to your point, you can say them in any way with any tone. It's not about the words.
Oh God, I mean, we're actually told, like, what you're feeling a little down, choose a different color for your living room or something like that. And it's like, okay, so something like a color, something as simple a change as a color is going to have an impact on you. But a whole human being, as part of your environment, that's huge. That's a massive thing. So yeah, it's just about who you are, whether you realize it or not. It's more your state of ease that has an impact than you trying to convince anybody that you're at a state of ease.
Right.
Because that doesn't sound like a state of ease.
That right there is very compelling for people, right? That sense of ease, because most people don't have it. They're fighting every single fucking step of the way.
Exactly. Kat, I believe you are next.
Yes. So I'm going to apologize because my thought was from like 4 thoughts ago. So, but I'm not really sorry, but I'm like pseudo sorry, right? Yeah. No, I don't remember exactly what you were saying. Not Andrew, but it was something where it just made me think about how something I struggle with as a fellow hyper thinker is like I get really caught up in like, okay, if I'm doing that thing, that's because of my past, that's because of maybe trauma, or that's from, my childhood or whatever. And then it's like, I've gotten to this place, like, I'm sure you all have heard about attachment theory, right? I feel like that's become like a buzzword in the little pop psychology world. And I've done a lot of research on it because I wanted to understand the way I attach to people, etc. And I feel like I've gone through this whole journey where I like really researched and was super aware of it. And I mean, I still am. But now I'm like on the flip side of it, where some of my friends are like, oh, I'm learning about attachment. And they're like, I'm an anxious attacher or an avoidant attacher. And I was like, oh, it's funny because I'm trying to like not label myself and how I attach anymore, and just kind of acknowledge like, oh, you're a human fucking being. It's like, of course you want that relationship to work, or of course you want XYZ. Like, not everything has to have this like title that is this thing that there's like, I don't know, something that you have to fix also. Like, don't get me wrong, if I'm doing something that is ultimately unhealthy and leading to the distress of me as well as my partner or whomever, it's worth looking at. But I don't even fully remember why. I just know that that's what popped in my head. I was like, oh yeah, it's kind of like that thing. But yeah, I'm like, because I've done a lot of years of therapy, and so I was always very heavily in that world of like, where I'm looking at why do I do what I do and trying to kind of fix it, because I didn't want to be like fucked up or something, which I'm not fucked up. And I never really was fucked up. I just didn't know that. So this whole like new experience has been like sitting in who I am as Kat, and allowing it to like you're just a human, Kat. Like, you have very normal human reactions. Like, you feel very strongly. There's nothing wrong with that. It's actually a beautiful thing. Like, I'm grateful for it. I don't know. It's been this whole transition, and that I don't know where that was going, but that was my thought.
Fuck yeah. And I was following, because it's oh gosh, the whole story, the whole fucking idea that we're getting somewhere to something more than what we are. Like, all it comes down to is letting go of the idea that there's anything wrong with you that you are right now. Like, that's where our resistance comes from. That's where our fight comes from, our concern, our fear, our worry. Oh, if this happens, then that's going to mean this. If this happens, then that's going to mean that. Oh, I'm this type of person. I'm that type of person. And there's all of this false certainty that then weighs us down, but it gives us that false certainty because we want to know something. We want to be able to know something. But when you stop having so much certainty about the story you've been telling yourself, there's nothing really telling yourself that there's something wrong with you anymore. And it's always just been me telling myself there's something wrong with me. But if I stop telling myself there's something wrong with me, there isn't so much wrong with me all of a sudden. It's like, oh, fancy that. If I stop telling myself so much shit. Yeah.
Can I add a thing at the tail that I'm so sorry, it just popped in.
For sure. Yeah.
It was actually, I realized when I started to have that conclusion or come to that conclusion, I don't know what kind of stuff we can admit on here because it was a substance that I did. I don't really know if I can say it. I don't know. Okay, cool. I tried 5-MeO DMT for the first time over, like, I think it was in the spring or the summer, and I did it twice. And for the record, I really don't do substances. I think I've only done like 2, and that was one of them. So go big or go fucking home. But the resounding message that I kept, that I had both experiences, like the first one, I just woke up and I had this feeling of like, you're okay. It was super weird. It was just like, you're okay. And I think it's because I've spent almost, 15, 20 years trying to make sure that I was okay, that I wasn't that thing like what I saw as an example, or I was, not an unhealthy or whatever type of person or something. And so I've like poured so much time and effort and energy into trying to make sure I'm okay. And it was this final like wake up call of like, Kat, babe, you're fine. Like, you're more than fine. You're fucking golden. Like, and not just because you've done the work, but legitimately because you are actually okay, and you always were okay, and you're going to continue to be okay no matter what happens. Yeah, and that's all. That was like that thought of what you said a second ago. It's like, you're fine. Like, you're Gucci. You don't need to do anything.
What's funny, I had a conversation recently with a friend of mine who's a counselor, and obviously there's a bias there, but I've been going through things like the end of my marriage and whatnot recently, and I'm doing okay. Like, it is what it is, and you got to adapt as you go. But the advice was, well, maybe you should see a counselor. And I know from my rough and turbulent teenage years that going through therapy is ultimately in the direction of you getting to a point where you admit you don't really need it. where you are strong enough to face it yourself. And I countered with the fact that knowing that I will never go to therapy is the reason I will never feel like I need a therapist. It's just the simple fact that I know I'm enough. Like whatever healing is going to happen through my own self-honesty and self-reflection. A good therapist really just gives you the therapeutic environment to feel safe enough to work through your shit. They have no answers that you don't have. They have no wisdom to give you that's not innately in there, and then you're already willing to recognize. They can talk all day long. It's not going to make a bit of difference. Not at all. It really just comes down to you and your willingness. And if that willingness is there, then you're already willing. You're already everything you need. You don't need to go to the therapist.
Maddie, I believe you are next.
Loving everything that's being said, and I agree with if you don't feel like you need therapy, and if you feel strong enough within yourself, then like you really don't need it. I think a therapist just offers the space for you to, like a safe space and a different perspective that, or so they can help you ask the questions that you might not have asked yourself. That's if like you haven't really done any inner work. If you're, but there's like nothing wrong with, going off on yourself and doing it by yourself, for yourself, because but I was just going to jump back into the topic of being genuine. Like you can feel when someone is being, or they're trying to be something as if like to prove something to themselves or to the people that they're with, like, oh, I am worthy of your time. I am worthy of like hanging around. And it's like, well, if I didn't want to be around you, then I wouldn't be here. So like, you don't have to play this game of pretend or like try and make yourself something that you're not or impress me in any way, because I am just here for you. Like I'm enjoying your company already. So like, you don't have to pretend or mask. And I find it interesting that the inside of it's not about the words, it's what's beyond the words, because the words are just pointers, and but it's up to you to be able to like kind of see what is the message that is being sent beyond it. And I don't really have much else to add. I thought that it would just kind of come up in the moment. I just wanted to jump in, but
Hell yeah. Yeah, because the words are kind of irrelevant, more or less. Like there are awesome means of interacting and communicating, but the word, like, as soon as there any degree of about the words, then it matters what words are used. It matters what words are said. But if it doesn't, then you're relaxed. And then whatever comes out is, from that sort of flow and that lack of resistance to whatever comes out, because it's just a lack of concern. You're just unconcerned about how things play out. So there isn't so much rigidity and stress and tightness and all that stuff. And through that lack of concern, there's a different thing emoted. Is emoted? Is that like expressed? I think so. All right, cool. Fair enough. I think contextually people would understand that, but that's what's being then emoted, is that lack of concern. But if the words are of consideration almost at all, then it's not an expression of the state that is. So completely being willing to let go of the idea that the words mean anything or could possibly get anyone anywhere will allow them to start coming out without you needing to think about the right ones to say. Because as long as you're thinking of the right ones to say, you're rigid, stress focused on that as opposed to on what's actually going on. Oh yeah, Maddie. No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, it's like, how much in the moment are you kind of defining yourself by how you express? Are you just like expressing and just being the expression and embodying the expression? Are you like thinking, like looking back to the idea of yourself, or are you just kind of allowing it to fall behind you because it's just like this old kind of like just this tactic that you've sort of like gone back to? I've been experiencing that lately. Like the more I kind of let go of this idea that I have of me, or that had been like accumulating, sometimes like it's like I'm reaching back for it, but then I'm catching myself like as I'm reaching back for it. And it's just finding that like just like recognizing that like it's not actually real, or like it's like God, I'm trying to think about how to word this, but I'm struggling a little bit. So
Yeah, it's like there's nothing that's there when you actually look, when you actually sit and look. It's like, oh, there's nothing there. I keep assuming there's something over there that I'm throwing judgments at. But if you actually sit and look at it, it's like, yeah, it's like grabbing at that ghost, that figment of your imagination, because that's the only place fucking your idea of yourself exists, is in your imagination, straight up out of your imagination. Amanda? Yo.
I originally raised my hand because I was thinking about what Kat was saying about just telling yourself that you're okay, and it reminded me of being a kid, and you get hurt, you stub your toe, you fall off a bike, whatever it may be, and everybody runs to you, and what's the first thing they ask you? Are you okay? They plant that shit early, and so now as the adult character in the room, I just say you're fine. I don't ask kids, are you okay, if they stub their head? Like, unless they're bleeding out, they're fine. You're fine. I don't need to ask you, are you okay, if you stub your toe? Like, you're fine. Now get it back out there, and just shove them back out onto the playground. Like, you're fine. You're fine. You know, no. So it's always like, no broken bones, no gashes. Great, you're in good condition, get back out there, kid. Because it was just that little question of asking, are you okay, that I would notice kids would cry the minute somebody would ask them, are you, was like, ah! I broke my wrist. I used to do I used to be on the swing, and I would jump off the swing and I would do a backflip and then land, right? And I did that 1,000 times. One time we did not stick the landing and I broke my wrist, and it's just like hanging there, like bone is out, and I'm just like, Mom, I think something's wrong. And I wasn't even crying. I was just like, I I think so. I'm not sure, but mom, and she freaks out, and because she freaks out, I freak out. But up until the moment of, are you okay? Are you like, until that freak out, I didn't think anything was wrong. I didn't, because kids are fucking resilient. I have seen a kid walk head first into a porcelain sink, bounce right back off, and then just walk right out of the bathroom and go get a juice box out the fridge. And I was like, damn, that kid's got a hard head. It was just like kids are so much tougher than people imagine them to be. And it's just because maybe they're not emotionally resilient, and because they're not emotionally resilient, people consider kids weak, but they're actually incredibly physically durable. They bounce back so quickly. And so I thought about that, about how there's always that story of like, you're not okay. Someone has to ask you, are you okay? Which means like, was I not okay before? It's like, no, you were okay before. It's just somebody planted that story of doubt to make you think that you weren't okay, but you have always been okay. And it reminds me of just all these stories of like this fucking happy ending. And they lived happily ever after. It's like, what if happily ever after is just like the fact that I don't have a problem now? Like, this is my happily ever after. The fact that I don't need someone to save me, the fact that I don't need to save someone else, the fact that I'm not looking for things to always be pleasant. And so I don't need a story. But if I want a story, guess what I can do? I can pick up a book and have a satisfying ending, guaranteed, for the most part. for most books. They typically have a satisfying ending. If not, books wouldn't sell as well. You know, that's my theory. So if I really want a satisfying ending, crack open a book. But if you're looking for a book-like ending in real life, you're always going to be disappointed because life is full of surprises. And if you could always guarantee a happy ending, eventually you would want a challenge. And when you think about the stories, even thinking about this analogy of stories, there's always a challenge. There's always a battle. There's always something that the hero or the protagonist overcomes. It's never that they just woke up, they felt compelled, they saved the kingdom from nothing, and then they lived on happily after. Like, they always overcome a challenge, even in the story with satisfying endings. And it's just that we forget that part, and we only settle on the ending that feels satisfactory, forgetting everything that led up to it, not realizing that it was all that turmoil, it was all that conflict that made that satisfying ending so deliciously sweet. But if it wasn't challenging beforehand, it wouldn't be great, you know? So it's like, you've heard the saying, like, anything worth having is worth working for. And it's just because you know what it's like when somebody just gives you a car, right, from graduation from high school, and you just beat up the car, you don't think about it. But if you had to work 2 jobs, you had to save up for 3 years, and then you got that car, even if it was a cardboard box on wheels, you would love that car because it took so much to get there. And it feels so satisfying to drive that piece of junk because it took you so much effort and time and attention to get to that pile of crap, which is your pile of treasure. And so it's like, you think you only want the satisfying ending, but you don't want just that. You want everything that makes that ending satisfying to begin with. Or at least that's the thoughts that came to mind.
Yeah, it can definitely be easy to confuse stories with life. I mean, that's unfortunately the impact of a lot of movies, Disney, especially the fairy tale ending, where families always come together, that kind of thing. And that's so simple. But we forget that the big difference, not just in stories, but also in how we perceive history, is that the story you're reading or the story that you're looking at on the screen or the story you're listening to is always just a very small snippet of that person's life. It's always just like within a month, a week, maybe a couple of years, maybe it's the span of their life, but you only see certain pivotal moments. Like, there are so many other things in between that you just can't include in a book because life is so much longer than a book. Could you imagine a book that even contained everything that's happened in your life up until now? Like, it'd be massive. Like, how many people would be having different perspectives? Would it be a book just from your perspective, right? Or would it be a book from the possible perspectives of other people too? Like, it would just be immense, and that's just your life right now. Right. So yeah, there's no story that can come close to the reality of existence, which is that it's not about an ending. It's about many different endings, which aren't really endings when you think about it. That's why, again, that song "Closing Time," every beginning is some other's beginning's end. It's like, yeah, it's pretty much it. Like, eventually, that's exactly how things is, cause and effect. It's like, if you think about it, it's all just cause, or it's all just effect. Like, we kind of just arbitrarily break it up, don't we?
Entirely arbitrarily. And that book would be it would be infinite. Like, you start actually digging into that, like, all of the perspectives, every fucking moment to moment thing that has happened, it would be an infinite story. And that's you in potential, an a potentially infinite story. They keep, there's so much context you couldn't possibly fathom understanding it. And yet you're looking at little bits and pieces. You're only seeing little bits and pieces of the entirety of the story of you. I think I know, oh, I got the whole story. It's like, no, it's also all of the infinite potential perspectives as well. I'm just reading a line every fucking couple chapters and thinking that I know the whole story. It's like, that is awful context to pick 2 words a page every 25 pages and piece together some fucking story. That's not going to make any sense, but that's it. And anything that deviates from my assumption of those 2 words every 10 pages is going to make me uncomfortable. It's like, that's the equivalent of settling upon a story of yourself. That's how little context you have of yourself relative to the infinite potential perspective of your entire story. Oh gosh. I believe Marie, yes, you are up.
I love trying to play the game of what is Ray mouthing with his mic on mute. And I know something fucked up with the advertisement, and yeah, oh, it's happening now, but I'm not reading it because I'm talking. Anyway, love it, love the power. Anyway, so hi everybody. So the thought that came to mind throughout the last couple, I guess, people sharing is, and it was literally brought up, but stories. And when Amanda brought up kids, like I've been back at work now working with kids, and I fucking love working with kids because, like you said, like they are so resilient, they're so strong, they're so aware, and like all you want to do is help them relax and tap into all that curiosity and wonder they have, and keep it a part of who just be yourself, dude. Honestly, what's funny is Ray has taught me the three components that I've been like adding to the lesson, like the lessons I've been doing with my kids, which is like the themes of relax, pay attention, and be yourself. I'm like, that's how I've been saying to teachers. Is that like talking about rippling out? It's just like if I mean some conversations can only go so deep, but I feel like everybody can understand on some level what it looks like to relax, whoever that means, or where they're at. It's fine, but like to relax, pay attention, and be yourself. I think a lot of people can just get on board with whatever that means for them, because words. And then with the kid thing, though, like even when somebody falls, for instance, which happens every day because kids, people, but like I won't even like make eye contact with them. Like I'll know that it's happening, and won't give attention to it. And they'll usually just like get up, they'll look around to see if anybody's, is anybody worried? Is anybody having a reaction to what just happened? And if no one's having a reaction, kind of just like brush themselves off and keep going. And so it's like what's funny about that, or what came up, and I'm just gonna start saying these words out loud because I haven't thought it all the way through, but like how often like I'm talking about paying attention, but like not giving attention to a narrative. Here we go. So like if I were to like have a reaction, or start to create a story that like something is wrong or whatever, now this person is receiving that like, oh yeah, something is wrong. Whereas if I'm not giving the attention, so it's like I'm paying attention to the moment to understand, I guess, what seems to be the most helpful way to navigate this, but I'm not giving attention to something that's happening, and then not giving attention to it, but yeah, I guess I'm not giving a narrative to it. I'm not trying to, tell them how they're feeling, or make it more than it needs to be, whatever it may be. I just think it's funny that, a lot of times they'll just brush themselves off and keep on moving. And like, that's something that's so important to learn, because so much shit is going to keep happening. And like, that's all life is. It's just random shit. And then like, if you don't give it a narrative though, if you don't allow it to define who you are and what's, your experience, then you can just keep on shrugging on and like dancing through it, which has been happening a lot this fall, and I'm here for it. I mean, like Andrew's been showing some moves that I haven't seen as much, which is fun, and Amanda's always dancing and having, doing her thing, and I appreciate I just appreciate being myself with y'all and being you and you being you, and it's just so fucking fun, and that's all I gotta say right now.
Oh, that's great. I've had moments where I've witnessed that, especially when my daughter was younger and she'd have friends over or something. I'd be on like the second floor looking out the window, and her friend be like running full tilt across the lawn. All of a sudden, bam, just face plant right into the dirt. And my first reaction is like, oh shit, should I go running? And then you just watch for a second. Kid kind of stands up, looks around. It's like, I don't have an audience. Yeah, fuck it. And they just keep going. And isn't it so funny how so much of our reaction comes from the perception of other? How did I look falling on my face? Right? If there's nobody looking at me, do I give a shit? Isn't that funny? But that is often the case. And that's exactly what it looks like. It's like, anybody see that shit? No? All right. Wasted opportunity. I'm just going to keep moving on. And it's just so funny how as children, we don't recognize that we're building reactions to things, and we're building this slow concern for what somebody else might think. Right? And of course we are, because the perception of other.
Yeah, it's almost like we're a reflection of our environment until we recognize that we are our environment, and then we start having more influence over it. But as we grow up, I guess there is that realization, but it's we're just sponges for everything. Like, that is our entire reality. So that's what we become, of course. And until that realization that there isn't that disconnect, you can start to work back through some of those assumptions that you were making, and that whole story that got built on top of that, and start being that reflector did just have an influence from just fucking being yourself.
Kat, you were up next.
Yes, sir. My thought, I feel like this is the game we're just going to play. There'll be like 3 thoughts back. But when we were talking about the concept of like being okay, and I think what you were saying, Amanda, because I think I'm a sucker for semantics, and that might not even be the right term to use, but whatever. But like, I think the concept of being okay is the one, like, it's worth talking about with people. Like, if I like to frame it like, I'm like, okay, if I have kids, what would I teach them? And like that thought of like, you fall down, you scrape your elbows, and you are bleeding, but ultimately you're okay. And you're not okay because it doesn't hurt and you don't have an injury and you don't need to take care of that injury. Like, you're okay because ultimately you're fine, and you're going to be fine, and it's going to heal, and you'll be able to work through it, and you'll get stronger, and you build resilience and strength. And I think that a lot of times when people say to other people, they're like, oh, you're okay, it feels dismissive because it's this lack of acknowledgement of their human experience. Like, when I think about some of the roughest times I've experienced in the last handful of years, I'm like, there were moments where I knew I was okay, but I was also simultaneously acknowledging that, like, this fucking sucks. Like, I am unhappy, or I am devastated or angry or whatever. And it's that dichotomy of being able to know, like, I'm angry, but like, I'm also okay and gonna be okay. Like, it's okay to be angry. It's okay to have a feeling because I'm a human being. That doesn't mean I'm not okay. Like, I think that's like that place of growing is, but so like, I've noticed that, like, when I say I'm okay now, I don't know. I like that term, but I feel like it helps when, if I was talking to somebody, like when I was talking to my niece recently, and I'm breaking that down because we were talking about something she was struggling with. But it's like, you're okay, but like, yeah, you still need to take care of whatever's going on. Like, if you cut your head open, like, you should probably put a Band-Aid on it. But like, also, you're okay. You're gonna be okay. Or if you have a concussion, we might want to check that out. but also, you're okay. I don't know. I like it. And then on the other thing you guys were talking about, I really love this concept of stories, because I think it makes it so I don't know, it's easy to wrap your head around. Like, I think the first time I heard somebody describe like our experience as the story we tell ourselves was probably like, I don't know, 8 to 10 years ago. And I've heard it come up so much more since. Like, people use it in their conversations now where they're like, well, the stories you tell yourself. And I'm like, I fucking love that. Like, when did that start becoming popular? But it's so true. Like, how I'm sitting here, depending on the story that I tell myself for this moment or this day, can completely alter how I perceive the experience. So am I going to have a good experience or am I going to have a bad one? Well, it really just all depends on the story I tell myself. Like, I don't know. It's like perspective stuff. I don't know. I love it. I'm enjoying listening. So those are my old thoughts and the new thought. And thanks.
Yeah, and it's the continuation of telling yourself that story, thinking that there's any credence to it whatsoever, and it's exciting to start seeing more people even just acknowledging it. Maybe not necessarily completely being willing to look at, oh, that's the entirety of my perspective, and if that's not true and my opinions of things aren't true, what's left is just myself here now. But even just the willingness to see and look at, oh, this is just a story I'm telling myself, and when you break it down, it's just from one unique tiny little minuscule perspective, so it has no credence whatsoever. It's just like a comfy little flotation device that we've been continuing to hold on to because we don't know that we can swim, because we've never let go of the flotation device, the floaty of the story of some false certainty, just a little tiny perspective. Meanwhile, being able to swim, but never being willing to let go and realize that you can't, not being willing to take the leap. And that's all it is. Because even, in that example, babies know how to swim when they're born. It's crazy. And what gets in the way is our fear of it. And so if there's not so many reasons to be afraid anymore, the environment shifts with you, then there's more people willing to let go of the floaty, let go of the story, or at least question it and wonder, do I really need this floaty? And I believe Maddie is next. Maddie.
As we've been talking about the story, I've been thinking about how the story that we tell ourselves is like we're paving the path underneath us instead of just like as we're walking, we're like paving it as we go so that we can feel this certainty of like ground underneath us so that it feels like we're stable instead of just letting go or like ditching the pavers and just allowing yourself to fall and then figure out how to like fly as you're falling. And I love the conversation of that we're always okay. Kat, I've done DMT as well, and I love it. I think it's a beautiful substance, and that's one of the, like, anytime I go into that space, I like pretty much always have this recognition of like, you're okay. Like no matter what is happening, you're okay. And it's been settling like throughout like my journey, is that no matter like what happens, like we're still here and we're okay. Like everything that is happening around you is just, it just is what it is. Like, and then you are also the thing that is happening around you. So like, there really is like nothing to fear but fear itself. And it's just, I love how we were talking about kids and how like, I've seen videos where people pretend to like knock their kid's head and then they're like, oh my God, are you okay? And then the baby starts crying. Like, yeah, it really is like our reaction that they're kind of looking at and they're like, oh shit, this must be happening. So like, fuck, I'll like freak out as well. And it's almost like when we're growing up as kids, you're allowing like other people to kind of input in on your story because you don't have one. So other people are like writing your story as well. It's not just you, but like you listening to them and they're kind of like, here, let me, I'll grab my pen and kind of like write in a little bit here. And then you eventually take on their pen and then you're kind of like writing like with it. And then like you could either be looking back to them or, but it's just, yeah, that's all I have to say.
Yeah, it's funny because I think in the context that we're saying, I'm okay. What I'm really saying is I'm not panicking. I'm not panicking, and therefore everything will just be what it is. But that's really what we're trying to reassert for ourselves. Like, don't panic. And that's really the biggest problem, is just giving into that urge to give into our fear. I'm afraid, therefore I should be. I should be panicking and reacting to it. And if we can just not do that, I'm okay. Then all of a sudden we're just, we have a bloody leg, or we have something we have to deal with, or shit went sideways and now we got to adjust, right? But we're not panicking, and therefore everything's fine after that. And we don't recognize that very often, do we? That it really is mentality first. It's mentality first. I was saying this about teaching my daughter math when she was young. She would get frustrated with herself for not being able to understand it. And then you would watch her ability to understand it just go lower and lower and lower as long as she was frustrated. And finally, it's just like, let's just take a walk, take a break, stop it, fuck it. Like, don't even worry about your math. She'd come back later not thinking about herself, and all of a sudden it would be easy for her. Well, what was the big difference? Her. She was in the way. She was frustrated with herself. She was thinking about herself. She was reacting to the experience instead of just allowing it to progress step by step by step.
Pam.
Andrew, you got anything, or are you going to Pam? All right, Pam.
Pam is next.
Okay. Maddie, what you just said really blew my mind. I wrote it down so I can think about this tonight later, but the whole concept of I just realized that I let everybody else write my story for most of my life. And that's the switch over I'm having right now. So I'm like, wow, totally blown away by that way of thinking of it. So thank you for saying that. Whew. What I was going to say was, I was thinking back on this moment where I'm very emotional right now. Where Andrew said on Instagram, and he says this all the time, but it was a long time ago, where he said, "There's nothing wrong with you." And I was like, blew my mind. And then I tie that moment when he said that back to also a conversation that has come up multiple times, is this idea that when you're born, we all talk about how newborns are perfect. And then as we live, they somehow, in our minds, we make ourselves and we make other people not perfect anymore. But in reality, they haven't changed. You're still the perfect baby that you were the day you were born. And that whole concept to me is so incredibly transformative to think about that. And when I've mentioned that to people just in the last couple of weeks, just randomly, I'll kind of drop it into, some sort of conversation. And, people really stop and think about that for a second, because we all have that reaction to a newborn baby, especially people who have had a baby before, is that there is nothing wrong. It's perfect. And it's we're still there, you're still perfect. So am I. That was so incredible. And it just sort of all is coming full circle here, listening to you guys. So, yeah, Andrew, that moment when you told me on Instagram that there's nothing wrong with you, I was like, what? Who is this guy? That was the beginning of this. So anyway, just very grateful for these thoughts, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate the fact that you're here sharing with us, because that's really all this is. That's really all it is feeling what you're feeling and working through it, seeing what comes out. And what's interesting is that it's almost always in perfect unison with something that somebody else is going through. I love the fact that there's so much in terms of just being able to relate to one another, because we're relating not on a level of detail, I own this, you own that, I live here, you live there, but we're just talking about the experience of just dealing, of just going through what it is to be here in the present moment. And we can all relate to that.
Awesome.
Yeah. The experience of being me. We all got that, right? With our unique stories and reasons for thinking there's something wrong with our story, but it's just me collectively letting go of that, all of the reasons that I think there is something wrong. It's not about changing the things that happen or the things that you do or the ways that you act. It's about letting go that there's ever anything wrong with any of the things that you do or the way that you act or the way that you sound or the way that you speak or the way that you interact or the way that you do fucking anything. You don't have to change a goddamn thing. It's just letting go of your assumptions, your little tiny minuscule assumptions of what the right way to act and the correct way to be is. And then it isn't there so much. The weight doesn't exist so much when you stop making assumptions about what you should be doing relative to what you're doing. Just do, and stop telling yourself a story about what you think that is relative to what's actually happening, because that doesn't do anything. And you're just left with where you're at without so many assumptions and a little more freedom to fucking dance around a little bit, you know? Who's next?
Amanda.
Poppy.
We have evolved from Poppy into the Chupacabra. A wild beast is on the loose. Be weary, people. Be weary. Oh my God. But I'm loving this. You were just saying about like how babies are perfect, Pam, right? And it's so funny because it almost feels like they're considered perfect because they're a blank slate. No experience. They're not tainted by experience, or they're not tainted by bad things happening or bad habits or labels that are not ideal. It's like they're a blank slate, and we forget that we are a blank slate in every single moment. And it's just that I paint a similar picture so fast that I think that the picture has always been there. But technically, I am recreating that picture every time that I bring the story back. Every time I say that I'm a type of person, I am repainting that similar picture and telling myself that it's identical. But just because it looks similar doesn't mean it's identical. It's actually brand new, and I'm the one that's recreating it every single moment. Because if I don't recreate it in every moment, I am that blank sheet. I am that blank canvas, and I am the paint, and I create the image that I experience. And I was thinking about maturity and how, adults that are not mature, and kids that are very mature. And I'm like, well, what's the difference? And it's like, maybe it's the fact that maturity doesn't mean a certain age minimum or maximum. It means that you've learned from the experiences that you've had. Because if you've ever talked to anybody that you've considered mature, it's somebody that has been through some shit and has learned from it and hasn't turned out to be bitter in the end. But they're mature enough to understand that things are not always going to be pleasant, that the stories are not always going to have a satisfying ending, because you're always writing. The story is always continuing. But if you're expecting things to stop and settle with you, with wherever you want your mind to settle, your life won't stop in that same breath. But for the people that I consider mature, it's always the people that have learned from their experiences. And that's why I meet so many adults who have learned nothing, not because there's no lesson, but because they don't want to admit that they have something that they could learn. They want to pretend that they know everything. And so they don't want to learn from the experiences that they're in or have been in, because I'm a know-it-all. So if I'm a know-it-all, what do I have to learn? And those are the people that tend to be the most rigid. But and that's why I can encounter kids and I'm like, damn, you're so mature. And it's like, because they grew up fast, but it's like they learned how to just digest the world around. They learned how to take it in, how to really take something from that experience and not just have the experience brand them like a scarlet letter. It's not that they were that experience. It's just that they took something out of it because they knew that it was an opportunity. It was an opportunity to learn something more about themselves. And so I think that's so interesting when I think about maturity now, and how I used to want to be around people who had similar stats, right? People who were also straight A students, people who were also maybe who smoke, people who all like similar stats, thinking like because we had similar stats, we would have more in common. And that was never the case. It was always the people that I would never expect to be friends with that we ended up having 10, 15, 20-year friendships, and we couldn't be more different. But it's just that what's different is on paper, but what's the same is the fact that we share the experience and we share that the struggle feels similar, but it's not identical. And so I definitely appreciate that, because there is no one who has gone through exactly the same conditions and circumstances as you. So there is no one who will have your particular insight, your particular perspective, even if it's similar. They didn't have exactly your mom and dad. They didn't live in exactly your house or have exactly that drawer that didn't open in your bedroom, or the tricycle that lost a wheel. Like, they didn't have exactly the same experience. And so that's what makes everyone's perspective so beautifully unique and so valuable, is just because even if you think that people have been through something similar, no one has. And so you have something to offer that no one else does. And so what I love telling people is, like, go out there and kick ass like only you can. Because even if it looks like we bust through that door in the same way, we approach it differently. You lift your leg at a different, you hit it with a certain momentum, you have a certain feeling. Like, there's, and I love that I live in the town that Dr. Seuss is from. There's no one that's youer than you. I fucking love that, because it's so true. And people think that that's like a bad thing. Like, no, I should be like this celebrity, or I should be like this person. It's like, no, no, no. You should be you, because no one can be you like you, because there is no other you but you.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. And the unwillingness to recognize that, you think you know everything and you don't. Like that realization that everyone's unique in the sense of their experiences. Like, there's something to both offer and learn from every single person that you interact with. Like, it's everyone's walking on the same ground, thinking that there's some hierarchy or some better spot to be at. Everyone's just walking around with a bunch of assumptions in their head while walking on the same flat ground at all times, the same flat ground that they're always in. They've always been on the same flat ground. You've always been on the same flat ground, making assumptions about how you're doing, like measuring yourself, thinking that you're dipping or climbing or getting higher or getting lower or whatever, while maintaining the same fucking spot on the ground that everyone else is at. And so as you go up to anyone, there is no higher or lower. There is no inability to learn something from everyone. Like, there is that opportunity, and there's something for you to offer by default. If there's something to learn from everyone has something to learn from you. And so it's that balance of, being willing to share and not hold yourself back, because that doesn't do anyone any fucking good. To keep holding yourself back from the potential that's available when you stop making so many goddamn assumptions about yourself and looking at yourself through that little fucking keyhole, thinking this is the whole goddamn picture. It's like, that's not doing anyone any good. Fighting yourself, doubting yourself. And as you stop doing that so much, there's so much more space. It's like all of my space is taken up by my fucking doubt. And then when there isn't so much, it's like, oh, there's a lot more stuff going on. I can actually see shit all of a sudden, because I'm not doubting myself, because the doubt is just a comfortable habit as well. The doubt doesn't help you. Does the doubt? Oh, when the fuck has the doubt ever helped? It's never helped. It's never actually helped whatsoever at all.
But what am I going to do with my time in between when I can do something and when I can't do something? Right? Like, there are things I can do about my problem sometimes. And then there's a whole lot of space in between where I can't do shit about my problem until a certain point. So what am I going to do with all that time? I'm going to fill it with thinking. I'm going to fill it with thinking. Like, thinking's going to get me somewhere. Like, thinking's going to affect the outcome of the thing that I can't fucking do until I get there. And then when I get there, it's nothing that I thought it was. But the alternative is to just sit there and go, yeah, I don't have control. I can't do shit until I get there. And then to move on with your life. And somehow we think, but that's going to be serious when I get there. Therefore, if I'm lighthearted now, that's a blasphemy. It's like I'm somehow dishonoring how hard it's going to be later by having a good time now. And it's just the weirdest thing. Like they even give you your last meal before death row. They're like, at least enjoy this before you go. So they're giving themselves permission there to have a good time before shit gets real bad. Why can't we do that? It's like, eventually things are going to get hard. As of this moment, you can't do shit. Chill out. Breathe. Relax. Maybe, I don't know, take up slacklining or something. right? But that's it. It's what do I do with this moment in between? Something. Don't give in to the urge to just delve into thought, thinking that that's going to make you feel better, because I don't know if anybody here has noticed, but it doesn't. It really doesn't, because you can keep thinking, and then as soon as you get to a thought where you're like, well, that makes me feel a little better. Oh fuck, there's some questions I could ask. No, I'm not going to ask myself questions about that. So all of a sudden, thinking's not helping at all, because again, you could keep thinking. There are more questions. No matter what you settle on, you're going to doubt it because there's more questions. This is the problem with religion, right? People really defend their religion. Why? Well, because they secretly doubt it. That's why when you cling to a thought that you can question, doubt arises. That's just part of the fucking point, right? So it really is just like, just be where you are. Stop thinking there's more that you can do than you're doing, because playing in this fictional world of your head is not getting you anywhere. And just relax. I love how simple it is. By the way, before I move on to the next person in line, I just wanted to mention how fun it's been to change our names throughout this episode. Anybody who is listening to this episode and you haven't checked out the video version, do check out the video version on YouTube. It's well worth it. There's been a lot of different things happening here. I have been referencing one of my favorite horror movies / horror series. So of course I had to just change it up from time to time. El Brujo Especial is definitely my favorite, followed by El Jefe. These are both references to Ash versus the Evil Dead. If you haven't seen it, go watch it.
Ray, I believe you're up next.
There's a funny George Carlin bit where he says before people get the injection for like the death row, he's like, they fucking wipe your arm with an antibacterial wipe. Like, what the fuck is that for? But that's what. Make sure we clean that before fucking kill you. You never know what's gonna happen. So we do, though, I guess, in that case. And then it's interesting though how comforting yet limiting attaching to stories is. Like how often the go-to can be, well, I'm going to react this way because that's just who I am. I'm going to be this specific way or have this reaction because this is what I do. And it's like it is a lot about recognizing. It's all about letting go of the stories and being exactly where you are without any judgment, without any need to be different. Because like, what is that desire? Like, I can't be good enough right now. There has to be something wrong with it. There has to be, right? And it's never the case. And it's only when we stop chasing that desire when we really feel the most free.
Amen. Amen. It's the fight for something to be different, right? The fight for something, me to be different than I am, for this experience to be different. Something happening right now shouldn't be happening. Do you know that? No. If you say yes, how do you know that? How the fuck do you know that? Where is it going? What are you so possibly sure of about this? What exact evidence are you getting that makes you think that right now you're not in the spot, the perfect spot to be you, to be yourself? Like, oh, so many goddamn assumptions that are coming. Oh shit, I realized, oh man, I was in the process of changing my name, and that is not what I wanted it to be. It was funny. I was on Google, actually. I had to throw it into Google to search if I'm spelling it correctly, and then I was able to, but it was going to be different. So I'm going to change it now, and I'm going to stop talking.
All right, we'll just drop it there. Empty space, willing empty space. Now, Amanda, you are up.
I love the misspelling because that inspired me, Andrew, to create Flagatarius. It's a new horoscope. Maybe it could be Fuckatarius. Oh, that's better. Oh my goodness. But no, but I'm very much just appreciating how much easier it is to play, how much easier it is to just not need to go in any particular direction because I'm not looking for anything. Like there's nothing that I'm gonna get from let's say let's say we buy a house, let's say we get another car, let's say we move. It's like, yeah, but I'm still gonna be the same asshole that's living in this apartment. I'm still gonna be the same, I'm still gonna be the same person I bring in. So that's why when I was thinking about my first tattoo and I was thinking about what I wanted to get, which is not what I actually got either way. But one of the ideas that stuck with me was this quote, and it's very often a change of self is needed more than a change of scenery. And I really loved that. I really loved that because that told me that even though I was like 17, about to turn 18, and like that's when you could get your tattoos, I was thinking about it and I was thinking about moving and doing all these things. And I saw that quote and that really hit me because I was like, yeah, but if I'm moving so that I can finally be confident, how can I guarantee that I won't bring my insecurities with me? How can I guarantee that without the normal triggers, I wouldn't do the normal habits? And so that really stuck with me. And I ended up not moving for a few years when I was really gung ho on getting out of my small town and going out there and taking the world by storm. And the world is my oyster, as I was told so often. But it was because I realized that what I was really trying to leave was that feeling of discomfort. And I thought that being in a new city was going to give that to me. I thought that being away from my parents and my friends and my old triggers would give me that. And then I saw that quote and it called me the fuck out. And I was like, ooh, you're right. We change the scenery, but we bring the old self. That new scenery is not going to matter. And so when I think about that quote now, it really hits in a new way because it's like, the self is always changing and I don't need the self to be any particular thing. And so the scenery also doesn't have to be any particular thing. And I mean that across the board, professionally, personally, geographically. I could work in any job. I could live in any city. I could be in any certain environment, and none of that's going to matter because it's who's showing up to be in that scenery that matters the most. It's not the words, it's not the scenery, it's who's in who's in that moment. And not even who, but what is the moment experience like to you, because you are that experience. So as much as I can bring Amanda the character, I don't need the character to have the experience. And what I always like to bring it up when I'm chatting with people out and about on my day-to-day was like when you were an infant. And so we bring babies back. When you were an infant, you had no story. You were existing. You had no name. You were still existing. So I don't need the character to exist, but the character is a great tool, or the character is like a great ship. And here I am on the seas of creativity and on the seas of potential. And my ship is Amanda, the USS Amanda. And we could rename it whatever we want. We could add a new mast. We could change out. We could repaint it. But it doesn't matter because I'm not the ship, and I can hop off the ship at any point and just be the potential, untapped, unlabeled, just completely untethered. And so that's why it feels like now when I decide, because I'm thinking about moving, I'm thinking about doing different things, I'm thinking about going in different directions, and it feels so wonderful because if I never left this spot, if I never changed this character, and if I stood in this apartment with this job and this car forever, and let's say forever in this character was 50 more years, if that all stayed the same, that'd be wonderful. It wouldn't matter. I'd be so happy living because I have a good fucking time. I am so enjoying this moment that is not impressive to anyone. On anybody who wants to be impressive on paper would look at my life and think, what a lackluster approach to life. Jazz, despacito, hola, hey. No, but so now picking any direction feels so almost like sparkly. Every direction, we could go in any direction because it doesn't matter, because the person on the step, the person taking, or I guess I was watching an episode earlier today, and it's like, I am the path. So technically it doesn't matter what the path looks like. It doesn't matter which direction I take that path in. I am the path. And so it doesn't matter what I do or what I choose. What matters is that I'm here and that I'm enjoying this moment, and that it doesn't need to be anything other than what it is, because it is so perfectly it is so perfect. And I only say it's perfect because I wouldn't change it. And that's how I feel about the moments that I'm sitting with friends and I'm like, wow, this moment is perfect. And it's not perfect because it meets a standard. It's perfect because I don't want to change it, because I don't want it to be anything else other than what it is. And so that is perfection change.
Well said. Absolutely. Acceptance. Kat. Oh, you're up.
Sorry. Yes. No, I'm not sorry. I take it back. To have it. No, my thought, first of all, love that. Amanda, that was nice. Thank you for saying all those things, because I agree. But it was something, I think, God, you guys keep changing your names and I don't know you. And so then I'm like, who said what? I don't remember. But one beautiful lady before Amanda said something where you were talking about like where you, by accepting, like you like accept your story or accept who you are, and then you don't want to change. But I think it, on the flip side, like, or the mirror of that is, ironically, like, I don't know about you guys, but when I accept myself for who I am and like love myself where I am, that is actually when I have the most like freedom and space to change or to grow. It's like in those moments where I've stopped just fucking judging myself. Like, because there are things all the time that like in this one side, like, yeah, I could say like if I died as I am today, I did pretty good. But like there are aspects of who I am that I would love to keep growing. I would love the expansion. Like I don't want to stop, you know, because when you stop growing, you die. But by by loving me where I am, knowing that I am okay where I am, and giving myself that grace, I am inevitably giving myself the space to grow. And it happens like so much more organically, I think. It's similar to like when you know, it's like most of the thoughts that I try to fight in my head, like I was talking to my counselor about this just the other day. I was like, when I was like trying to fight a feeling because I was like, I was missing someone and I was mad at myself for missing them, because I was like, why the fuck do I still miss them? Like they were such a blip. But by holding on to it and being angry with myself for missing them, I was keeping it in my head and cycling through it and cycling through it. And then I was like, dude, it's okay. It's okay that you miss them, because again, you're a human being. Like it all comes back to that. Like you're a human, it's natural. And as soon as I like kind of accepted that, I got distracted and started thinking about other things, or just the thoughts kept moving, you know? And I was like, oh yeah, Kat, like, you know these things, you just forget. But like, if you'll stop fighting it and just let it be and let it happen and accept it, like it'll pass. It'll just do like what the river does, and it keeps on fucking flowing. And it's only when I personally dam it up that it gets all fucked up and starts pooling and lingering. But yeah, that was all.
Like leaves floating by in the wind and then pointing one out and like, I don't like that one. So you grab it. Like, I got to change that one. It's like, yeah, I would have kept going if you hadn't grabbed for that thought. And so, yeah, it's you know, what you resist persists sort of deal. As those things, certain perspectives come up, like as you're fighting it, it's like you're giving it attention. And it ultimately comes down to any perspective, any perception doesn't mean anything about you anyway. And so even as those feelings come up, because some of those feelings run deep of wanting someone to be there, but understanding that there's no degree of measurement of possible wavering in value that could possibly mean anything about you, because there is no way to measure you. There is no adequate measurement. It's all just assumptions floating around, settling upon some answer like, oh yeah, I've gained this much value, I've done this many things. And those are as much assumptions as our fears. Those are as much our assumptions as our negative perceptions of ourselves, the reasons that we don't like ourselves. Those are equally as assumptive as presumptive, assumptive. Yeah, one of them works. And so you can never be certain. That spot of uncertainty where you're not thinking about the good or the bad things about yourself is where it's all happening. It's like taking off the shades, lifting the veil, being like, oh shit, there's experience happening that has nothing to do with my assumption of this experience. That is cool. Huh. There's not so much concern here necessarily, because anything that does come up, any impact would be another assumption. But yeah, there's a lot of reasons that we cling to those assumptions or feelings of control in that spot of uncertainty and freedom. So, yeah.
Jazz, good to see you. As you know, we are coming to the end of our episode, so it is nice that you could join us. We have about 8 minutes left. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I was just enjoying coming in and out of the live stream and enjoying everything you guys were saying. And it's funny because I wasn't sure if I was going to join today. I did have something I wanted to touch on, and I will in the in the last 7 or so minutes that I have. But it's funny because it's very related to what you guys were already talking about, which always happens. But it's, yeah, I loved when Amanda was like, everyone seems to have a different perspective. And, you know, so I was like, yeah, I would love to share my perspective. So I was like, yeah, let's do it. So I was loving how, what I was thinking about recently, or what I've been realizing recently, is what it means to be of service. Because when you think about helping and what it means to help, and when you're seeing like people around you suffering a lot, then you can have this idea of control of how you can help, like, because sometimes you can have some assumptions about what someone is dealing with. And so a lot of times, like, it's because you're having empathy for what you are going through, basically. But what I'm noticing a lot lately is that you can't share insights. Like, you can only like be the insight, but you can't share it. And all you can do is just be the fertile soil in the moment for the other person to be as relaxed as they can be, so that they can grow in whichever direction that, you know, they choose. Like, they're the one opening Pandora's box, and they have to be the one opening Pandora's box, because you can't. All you can do is just be there, be yourself, be relaxed, and show all other yous that you can do that, because that's the spot where insights come from anyways. And it's it's funny because, like, yeah, you can think about what it means to help, but what does it mean to just be yourself and allow yourself to be yourself in all other iterations of yourself, and just have that lightness with it, because you realize that there's nothing wrong, that there's no kid that's hurt, or that there's no kid that won't learn from this. So yeah, I've just been, it's also really relaxing just for yourself when you realize that that's all you can do, is just be.
Yeah, it's really funny because all of a sudden it's so funny that we look at it and we have to use the word service, but that's really just the ego's perspective of it, because there's no other way to, it's like, well, I'm kind of just helping out, but it doesn't feel like that. It just feels like you're doing something that comes very naturally when you yourself don't feel like you need or lack or you're afraid. All of a sudden you're just fulfilled, you know, your cup is overflowing, as it were. So is that really being of service so much as doing something cool with your time? Right? It really is just like, yeah, this is kind of in my own best interest. It's just that all of this is equally me. There's no separation, right? We are all in this together, which is, we don't look at it that way because we can't, as long as we're all in this together, because there's that divisive perception. Right? It's interesting. As soon as we fall into it, there's a bit of a trap there. I want to mention that we are going to be continuing this for another hour and a half. In 20 minutes, there is a group discussion on our Patreon page. You can join. It's a tier 2 call. We have a free 7-day trial available for Patreon, so do feel free to join us. We love these discussions. They're a lot of fun. We do this 5 days a week. They're not episodes. Don't worry. You're not going to be on the screen in front of all of our audience, though if you'd like to, you definitely can. These roundtables are a lot of fun. Kat, I wanted to say very quickly, thank you so much for joining us. It was really nice that you could be here today. Great way to introduce yourself to the community and us. I'm looking forward to chatting with you more often.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to have you on here, Kat. And yeah, Jazz, to your point real quick, and then we got like 5 minutes. I'll pass.
I have one quick announcement before we wrap up.
Okay.
Just remember.
Okay, cool. I'm going to pass to Marie because I want to hear what Marie has to say.
Oh boy. Okay, hold on. What were we just saying? Yes, yes.
My thought, yeah.
Do it.
So my thought was going to be just about how you can't force anyone else to relax. Like, to Jazz's point, the only thing you can ever do is relax yourself.
Yes. Okay. Thank you for saying that. I was just having a conversation. It's so funny that you bring this up, Jazz, about how often I'll see living in New York homeless people, and then there's the stigma of being in a homelessness situation where they're less than, right? And that like there's like you're making assumptions and judgments, but all you see is this little picture, and you're once again creating a narrative or seeing it through that tiny little peephole versus recognizing that is you and accepting and loving, because loving is just like accepting that we're all in this together. Sorry, there can't be no division between us. And so like I love what you said, Jazz, of just like reminding others that you can be yourself is the best way to just be. And that's all we could do.
That's all you can do. All you can ever do. There's no one else to relax. You trying to get anyone else to relax. You can't do both. You can't do both. You can't try and get someone somewhere else and be relaxed as you're doing it. And there's no one else to relax. And ultimately, realizing that it's like there's not so many reasons to not be relaxed anymore. It's not necessarily you should relax or there's reasons to. It's just like that's the most viable option. It's the most productive option. It's the most efficient option. It's the most enjoyable option. And yet I still don't want to do it somehow because I think that I won't be able to handle something that comes up. Like, oh, but then I won't know what'll come out of my own mouth. Then I won't be sure of anything. It's like, motherfucker, you're not sure of anything right now. And tensing up and not being relaxed isn't of benefit, no matter what, ever. Like, it is not more beneficial, no matter what my mind tells me, to tense up and stress out and get super rigid and concerned about something relative to just fucking relaxing.
Which has been the process of this entire podcast. Since the very first day that we started this podcast, it has been a process of just relaxing into the conversation, not trying to be anything, not trying to get anywhere, but to just spend time being ourselves and practicing that, whatever that might mean, right? And I'm happy to say that through that process, 2 weeks before we hit our 2-year anniversary, we have officially crossed 1 million views on the Dualistic Unity podcast. We have had over 1 million views. And considering in all of our entire year one, we had less than 200,000, that means there's been so far 850,000 views in this year alone. And we still have 2 weeks to go. So we want to say thank you to everyone who could join us today. Thank you to everyone who has been a part of this community. Thank you just for being here. We really appreciate it because whether you realize it or not, you're changing everything just by changing yourself. And we are grateful because we have the clarity to recognize that. No demands. We have faith in you. Thanks so much for being here. We'll see you next time.